built in 1936. And there was nothing there but those two buildings, Hart Furniture Company and the Majestic. So look how much Dallas has grown. And these are probably two of the oldest buildings downtown. But now today, the Hart Furniture Company is owned by a black guy. The whole building. And the Majestic Theater is still performing. And black folks can go all over the place without having to go upstairs. So beautiful place. City has put a lot of money into that. But it's still old.
10 seconds. Here we go. 5, 4, fame on 3, 2, 1. Esther Davis.
Top of the day to you is Esther Davis. And I have a very special guest. This is one of my most exciting moments. I've been trying to get this gentleman to come on the show for several years now. He's busy, he's traveling, he's fighting a cause, some excuse. Finally tied him down. I'm Esther Davis, and my guest today is the Reverend Dr. Honorable Peter Johnson. Hey.
Hey, Esther Davis.
Hey, how are you doing?
Blessed, and thank you for allowing me to be here.
I've got to get your stories chronicled. We tried writing the book, that didn't work. So now we are going to put you out there for the whole world, and we're talking about civil rights. This gentleman was sent to Dallas about 1969 by Dr. King himself. And his job, he's going to talk about what his job was and his assignment when he came to Dallas. Well, he didn't go back to Atlanta, he stayed here. And he's been busy the whole time he's here. So I'm going to pick his brain today. We're spending 59 minutes with the Reverend Peter Johnson. And where do you want to start? Why did you come down here? Why didn't you like Texas when you got here?
Ooh, that's
That's a great
long
question.
time ago.
Uh-huh.
Martin King was assassinated in 1968.
Okay.
And at that time, I was working for an organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which was Martin's organization founded by Martin King and Ralph Abernathy. After Martin's assassination, the reality we faced was that Dr. King died without any money, no life insurance. Nobody would sell life insurance to Martin King. Martin had them little babies.
Yeah, 4 of them.
And they were little children. I could hold them in my arms when Martin was assassinated. Harold Belafonte and Sidney Poitier came to us in Atlanta.
Harold Belafonte.
Yeah, Belafonte.
Mm-hmm.
And Sidney and a Jewish producer named Samuel Livingston asked to meet with us in Atlanta. We met with Samuel Boy and Belafonte and Sidney at Pascal's in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And they presented an idea to us. And the idea was, we figured out a way to raise enough money where we could invest it so Mrs. King won't have to beg, that she could have enough money to be comfortable and raise Dr. King's children. And they said, yeah, this is Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, and Samuel Livingston. Their idea was to take Dr. King's life, which was all of the news, film footage on his life, and to create a documentary that could premiere. The idea was this documentary would premiere in 800 cities around the world, and it would raise X amount of dollars. They would invest that money on some kind of slick deal on Wall Street that would give Coretta income from now on.
Right.
Now that's what I know about that at the level I was.
Because you're a kid now. You got to be what? How old are you?
Well, but Dr. King got killed. I just turned 23.
23.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm the
you're a
youngest
kid.
there. I'm the youngest one on Dr. King's staff.
Wow.
And the boggle, I got the worst boggle mouth, the loudest.
Oh,
You know.
no way. You got the worst
I
mouth.
was a 23-year-old kid, real pissed off at white people. Dr. King is dead. So their biggest problem with me was not to send me somewhere that I was going to get killed. So the idea of me coming to Dallas was frightening to everybody, including Papa Daddy King, who I call Papa King, including Papa just thought that was not a good idea. Peter's too volatile, he's too confrontational. You can't send him to some place like Dallas, he'd be killed. Andy Young, who was my boss at that time, made those decisions. The decision to send me to Dallas had to do with something called SWAC.
SWAC. SWA.
It's a
SWAC.
black school, Southwestern Athletic Conference,
Ah.
Southern, Grambling, Gillett,
Okay.
the black
Okay.
universities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Growing up, I went to Southern, grew up across the river from, but in the South at that time, everybody knew everybody because of segregation. All of the schools was all black schools, so everybody knew
Yeah.
everybody.
We just had that discussion a little while ago. Yeah.
So the decision to send me to Dallas was strictly tied to first to Love Field. Love Field was the best airport in the South. In order for me to do my assignment, I was going to have to run all over the Southwest. The movie was going to premiere in 800 cities around the world.
Okay.
I had the 5 Southwestern states. That was my responsibility, to organize the premiere showing of the movie. Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico. Those were the 5 Southwestern states.
Okay.
Coming to Dallas didn't have anything to do with how racist Dallas was and how backwards the black community was here. It had to do strictly with Love Field. Love Field was
Wow.
the best. It didn't have, in fact, my assignment when I came here, the World Council of Churches owned a hotel. Everywhere the World Council of Churches owned hotels, we stayed free. There was one in downtown Dallas.
Right.
So my assignment was to fly into Dallas. You work out of the hotel. You run to these other states and get the premiere showing of the movie ready and set up. Each area was committed to raise a certain amount of money. So my 5 Southwestern states had a goal. Each state had a goal.
Okay.
The money.
Which means you had a goal for raising from
Yeah.
the movie. From the movie. Okay. Okay.
I had a goal that I'm supposed to raise X amount of dollars
Okay.
in this section of the country, of the world, because the movie was going to premiere all over the world. And in that meeting, they never needs a church, discussing where everybody was going to go. And when I put my hand up, my deal was the Virgin Islands. But of course, Rev.Peter said, Peter, put your hand down. You're going to Dallas. And so that's how I got here. And I was going to only be here for really 2.5 months.
2.5 months.
2.5 months.
What were you going to accomplish in 2.5 months?
Organizing the premiere showing of the
Oh, that's
movie.
not sure.
And the movie was going to premiere in October.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I came in August. The movie was going to premiere in October all over the world. And all I had to do was to stay out of trouble, don't piss the white people off, stay out of trouble, and get this done so we can raise this money for Coretta Q.
My guest is Peter Johnson, the Reverend Dr. Peter Johnson, who came to Texas in the 70s. And actually, we're trying to relive history. He is living history. A walking documentary on civil rights in the state of Texas. He came here with the intent of leaving in 2.5 months. So what happened, Peter J? You got in trouble?
As usual. I'm trying to see how to explain this. 799 cities around the world welcomed the movement on Martin Luther King's life. There was only one city on earth that said, and this is the words from the white power structure to my face, that nigger's movie ain't gonna be shown in this city. That's what the city of Dallas is the only city on earth that said Dr. King's movie could not be shown in this city.
Okay.
All right. For me, it was personal because I'm trying to see how to explain this.
Oh,
The youngest man.
yeah, the youngest man, the
And-
maddest man in the group.
And for me not to meet my goal, if whatever my goal was, for me not to meet my goal, is for me to listen to this crap from everybody else. Well, Peter's too young. Well, Peter's volatile. Well, you shouldn't have gave him that responsibility. Peter's immature. Y'all let him get away with stuff. So all of this was on me when I came here, and they said, you can't do this in Dallas. So it didn't have anything to do with Dallas. It had something to do with me personal. And Jesse Jackson, Julian Bond, John Lewis, everybody was older than me. And everybody thought that I was too volatile to be given that kind of responsibility.
Okay.
So being successful here was personal for me. Now the rest of the Southwest, Houston, Oklahoma City, nowhere we would not having any problems nowhere but this city.
That is amazing. Now, I don't know how many viewers don't know that story, but I, for one, did not know that. Because now you've been told you cannot show the movie here
That no, it's
because
not
the
gonna
powers that be. What pastors? Well, who did you meet? What black folks did you meet with here? Who told you this?
But first, like white people told me this.
The white folks. That's right. You said.
Starting with the white mayor's name was Eric Johnson, but it was H.L. Hunt and the really rich
Yes.
rich white men that I met with. Who said, no, that ain't gonna happen. And then, the words they used that I used, that's the words they used to me. That ain't gonna be happening here. I took it very personal. I took it extremely personal.
Okay.
And we knew that black leadership here wasn't to be trusted. See, that was a whole historical thing about the civil rights movement in this city and the black leadership here. That there's nowhere in the world you're gonna get any courage. Ain't no men in Dallas when it comes to black men that's gonna stand up and face these white people.
Okay.
And his uncle was here.
And his uncle.
And the young uncle was George Allen. I called George Allen Uncle George, because that's what Ed and Walter called him. I had known him since.
Now, George Allen was our first black
George
city
Allen
council
was on
person in
the
Dallas.
city council. Uncle George was on the city council.
Mm-hmm.
But Uncle George was the white people's city councilman, because that's how Dallas, Texas was. And this was a city that was absolutely controlled by a handful of rich white people. And they took it seriously. This was their city. They took it seriously.
And there was a certain way they wanted things handled.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Dallas way.
Dallas way.
When I explained I met with, there was a white man here named Herbert Howard, Dr. Herbert Howard. Herbert Howard was the pastor of Highland Park.
United Methodist.
Yeah.
There's a Highland Park Presbyterian, there's a Highland Park.
They had the Highland Park United Methodist.
Okay.
But it was Dr. Howard and a couple of other white men that I knew who arranged for me to meet with all of the rich white leaders in this city. We met at First Baptist Church.
Downtown.
I'm trying to remember. Maybe the First Baptist Church, if it was downtown,
Okay,
I don't remember.
but it was the first
But
Baptist
it was a big
That's
white
good.
church, and I was reluctant to go. In fact, I'd been advised, you don't want to do that by people I respected. When I decided to go, then, take a bodyguard. In fact, during those years, I didn't go do it, but I armed bodyguard. So I took a bodyguard.
Now, who were the bodyguards? And we're now in the top of the 70s. Was that the Muslims? Was that, we had all the groups here at that time. We had the Black Panther Party, we had CORE, we had SNCC.
I had this relationship with what was called Black Muslims.
Black Muslims, okay.
Isaiah Kareem was his name.
Okay.
Minister Isaiah Kareem, they were called ministers at that time. And the minister assigned for me to protect me. Like if you saw me picketing, there were 4 black Muslims there somewhere. They wasn't going to be picketing, but they were going to be there around me to make sure that nobody put their hands on me. We met at Highland Park United Methodist Church, I think.
Yeah. That sounds good. That's why I want the stories. That's why we want the stories, because you have the stories. You're the youngest member of Dr. King's, let's say, leadership team. That's what you guys were called at the time.
Yeah, the leadership team.
And you're all over the United States with his message.
Yeah.
And you're the one that comes to Dallas.
I have all of the Southwest. My responsibility is to organize the premier showing in the Southwestern states to raise this money for Mrs. King. And so all of us took this very seriously. The death of Dr. King had a tremendous impact and effect on me and on everybody else. It is something that I don't think any of us will ever get over.
Well, no, we had a riot. I mean, when he died in April, it was killed in April. There were riots all over the United States.
Yeah, so it was an extremely challenge to those of us that were.
Okay, so tell me, where did the George Hollands and the Stoneham come? All of a sudden, you're in a building, and we want to concentrate on this building. The building was 2606 Forest Avenue at the time.
Yeah. We weren't going to even set up an office here.
Okay.
because I was going to stay in the hotel, fly all over the Southwest, get the movie organized, bring the money back to Atlanta. Uh, but these white people here had created a confrontation that we did not plan for. And once uh, we eventually, 3 days before the movie was going to premiere, I still did not have any theaters in this city. I had friends here. Most of them was athletes from the black colleges. One was Bob Hayes was here. Bob went to Fairview, so I knew
okay.
Bob Hayes from my college days.
Okay.
Pettis Norman was here.
Oh my
have
gosh.
mercy.
Lord have
Pettis was
mercy.
from the Carolinas. He's really good. From Alabama. We didn't go in the A&T and so I knew Pettis. Pettis and Jesse Jackson kind of hung out together as kids.
Okay.
You basketball playing, football playing boys. So Pettis was here. 3 days before the movie was going to premiere, Pettis had contacted me and said, Peter, I need to come see you right away. And on Forest Avenue.
Right.
And I
Okay.
told Pettis, I'm awfully busy. I just got off a plane. I think I had to go to Austin later on that evening. And so Pettis said, but I got somebody I want you to meet. And you need to see and listen, Peter. So when Pettis gets to my office, he has this white man with him. And the white man got on dark sunglasses. He got his collar open and his shirt tucked, his collar tucked
Collar's
up.
pulled up.
Yeah, and he's walking like he's black. So he comes in my office, I'm already offended that he's acting like he's black. And Pettis, I love Pettis today. I mean, his health is real bad, but Pettis is trying to tell Peter, please don't cuss this man out. Just listen. So Brenda Demas brings them in my office, my private office, and Pettis stands over me with his hands on my shoulder to keep me from
To shut you up. Okay.
So this man, he is talking about how much he loved Martin Luther King. Oh, he's loved him. And he's got his handshake out, he's drying his eyes, and Dr. King meant all of this to this man. And he says, and I want to make sure that this movie on Martin Luther King's life is a success. I want to make sure it's a success for everybody. So I want to pay for tickets for everybody. I want to make it free.
Oh.
So I'm thinking about this, and I'm looking at Pettis, and Pettis is doing this to me, you know. And he reaches in his pockets and pulls out a checkbook. And he says, I need to know how to make the check out and how much. And the movie was not, the man's name was Peter McGuire.
Peter McGuire.
Peter owned the Burger King franchise. He owned all of the Burger Kings at that time. But I didn't know who he was, other than he was brought to my office.
He's with Pettis.
By Pettis
Yes.
Norman.
Yeah.
You know, who was somebody I knew very well. I knew Pettis wasn't going to throw me no spitball. This is a good man. Even today, I would say that Pettis says something, his word going to mean something.
Okay. Okay.
And so Pettis is trying to keep me from cussing this man out. So he pulls out his checkbook and asks me how much to make the check out, who to make it out to. And I call in Bill Sponsor. Bill, how many seats we talking about?
And where were you going to have it?
We had 3 theaters. And I couldn't tell you, there was the 3 major theaters in the city of Dallas.
Okay. Would Forest Avenue be one of them?
No.
Okay.
These theaters was owned by a white man named Gordon McClendon.
Oh.
He also owned KLIF radio station.
That's right, you sure did.
Now, a white man named Gordon McClendon is who owned all of the theaters in Dallas at that time. Even the one in South Dallas was owned by Gordon McClendon.
Wow.
That was the theater on Oakland Avenue.
Okay.
It was owned by this white man. But he owned most of the theaters in Dallas. But it was Pettis and Peter McGuire in the office. And this is 3 days before the movie was going to premiere. And so this man pulls out his checkbook and says, who to make the check out? I said, well, I don't know what he said, I want to pay for tickets for everybody. And I want this to be free for Martin Luther King. And I'm thinking about this. So I tell George, I will lock the door. And I'm going to call Republic Bank. If this check is a bad check,
okay.
you leaving out this goddamn window.
Okay.
You're going to get out the window.
Now we get to the real Peter Johnson here.
So we call, Brenda Demas calls Republic Bank. Get somebody on the phone, the Republic Bank, an officer.
Mm-hmm.
And I explained to him who I am. And I said, I have a check written on your bank. And I need y'all to check this check and tell me if it's a good check. Mm-hmm. So this man asked me, who wrote the check? And I said, a man named Peter McGuire. Oh, he said, oh, that's a good check. I haven't told him how much the check is. So I tell him, no, sir, you need to let me tell you how much the check. He said, man, let me tell you something. Mr. McGuire gave you a check. That's a good check. I said, sir, you need to let me tell you how much this check is. He says again, this time louder. I told you if Mr. McGuire gave you a check, it's a good check. And Pettis is being embarrassed by it because I'm screaming and hollering, and I already told George that he's gonna go out the window.
Yeah, that's right. You told
If
him.
you're playing with me in here, you're gonna have to get out of this window. So the man on the phone for a public bank, he says, sir, I don't know who you are, but if Mr. Peter McGuire gave you a check, that's a good check. Now, I can't tell you what the check was. The check was maybe 40-some grand.
So
just-
I mean, you just
Now,
want
this is 1969. That's a lot of money.
Yes,
in
it's a lot
1969.
of money, and you've got what you want. Now you've got the movie, but you don't have the buy-in from the Black community.
Not only that, so once, and I heard this man and thinking, and he asked one question, would you take a picture with me? I said, of course. So he called somebody else. They got to come from downtown with cameras for me to take pictures. And much I agree. And all of this is going on. And so me and this man in Pettis is talking until this photographer gets here. So Peter asked me, how the Pope people gonna get to this movie?
Ah,
I said, well, sir, he said, tell your girl, call Dallas Transit Authority, and we're gonna charter buses for everybody. So we do. And then he said, well, we talked to the bus company. He found out how much it's gonna cost to charter buses to come from all over.
Dallas.
Yeah. And he writes a check to the Dallas Transit Authority is what they were called. So, and then he wants to get,
Amazing.
was it WXOK, that was a black radio station. I forgot, it was an OK station.
KNOK.
Yeah, it was OK. So his deal was call the station, find out how much ads I could buy to announce where the buses are
Okay.
so that people could come to Dr.
So he
K's
organized
movie
the
free.
whole thing right there.
Standing right in my office. That we're gonna buy time on the radio stations. So people can know all you gotta do is catch the bus on this corner, then go back and the bus gonna bring you back home. Because I want everybody to come to Martin Luther King's movie.
Unbelievable.
Now you tell me that ain't Jesus.
No, that's Jesus. We're talking to the Reverend Dr. Peter Johnson, the last lieutenant that Dr. King actually sent out to form all of the SCLC knowledge and what we have today. But Peter did things his way. Now, let's go down a line. I got to ask you a couple of people. How did you meet Johnny Wolf?
Well, his daddy.
His daddy.
Peter Wolf.
Peter Wolf. Tell us about
Peter
Johnny.
Wolf. Peter Wolf was build Hollywood sets for movies.
Yes.
All over the world.
Okay.
That's what their company done.
Okay.
So how did I get to know Hollywood people? Peter Wolf. How did I get to know Carol Burnett? Peter Wolf. How did the civil rights movement get all these contacts in Hollywood?
Peter Wolf.
Peter never called Johnny. That was John. That's Peter. John, come on in, John. Johnny was a little boy growing up around the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement because of his daddy, Peter.
You had all of these blessings along the way. You had Jewish people. You had people from out of state coming in to support the cause, and you will sit here to take care of.
I was supposed to be having lunch today at a Jewish doctor's house, but I decided
You had to come on the Esther Davis show. This was most important.
And this Jewish doctor crossed that bloody bridge in Selma with us as a student.
You had a Rabbi
His name was
Zimmerman.
Barry Lockman.
Lockman?
Dr. Barry Lockman was a kid like me, but he crossed that bloody bridge in Selma with us. So Barry been around me since Selma.
In Selma. We're talking about Selma, Alabama, of course, and I'm talking to Peter Johnson. Now, when was the first time you were arrested, and why were you arrested? Let's get to the attorneys, because I have to cover, I know that I have to have a break in a few minutes, but I need to cover the attorneys that you ambered into this building, 2606 Forest Avenue. It had 4 attorneys in there, 4 black attorneys, I might add. And it's the firm. We got Bryce Cunningham, we got W.J. Durham, all young men, L.A. Bedford Jr., and Finch,
And
and
Mr. Finch.
Fred Finch.
Great, great, wonderful, wonderful men and tremendous lawyers, courageous men, just Christian men,
Yeah.
And here again, it's all God. God put me in the same building, these lawyers.
Yeah, you're in the same. And then our other blessing that you had,
You know,
the building was owned at that time
by black man.
by a black man. J.H. Glenn.
It was again. Listen, there used to be a place it was a place called L&J Cafe. It was on maybe
L&J.
Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
maybe.
Cafeteria.
Yeah, it was just a little place to eat.
Mhm.
And I would go there to have breakfast. And a lot of the professional men who's at offices in South Dallas would have breakfast there.
Mm-hmm.
And because I got to know all of those men at this place we would eat breakfast in. And they would always be interested in what are you doing, what are you doing, and I would explain to them. And I had not been here but a couple of months when I was told by Bedford and Cunningham, if you need lawyers, we'll help you. And,
So they came to you.
and I explained to them that we didn't have no money. And they said, well, we'll give you a contract and all you got to do is pay us.
$1
That's what I paid.
for what? A month? A
No.
year?
To represent SC. And they stayed in court fighting for me and for getting us out of jail. It cost me $1 a year.
Okay, I need to
$1 a
$1 a year. And you got 4 lawyers working for you.
Good lawyers,
But-
courageous, brave lawyers.
Somebody told me that one time you got really mad at one of the attorneys because you didn't want to get out of jail.
I told them, goddamn money. That
I'm just wondering,
well,
you got how many? Who was in jail with you?
I don't remember, but there was a reason we was in jail,
Oh,
and we needed to stay in jail, and they come get us out of jail.
Wow. With L.A. Bedford at that time was the first black judge.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human being.
And then you got Bryce Cunningham, who had, I have to say this word, great balls, because he was a brilliant attorney. That's when I met you.
But a genius.
Yeah, genius.
Crazy as he could be,
Well, yeah.
but a genius. And all of the white lawyers and judges knew this man knew what he was talking about. You couldn't cross him up in court. This man was brilliant, but cuckoo as he could be.
Yeah, that's been a regular conversation.
Yeah.
Now, so why were you in jail so much? I mean, what was it? You antagonized the police department. I got that part. But they would just round you guys up and just take you someplace and you wanted to stay there? What was the purpose of staying?
Well, because being in jail put a tremendous amount of pressure nationally on the city of Dallas. That I knew if I'm in jail, then the city got to deal with us nationally.
Okay.
So if I'm in jail, that means that the mayor can get calls from the United States Congress. He's gonna get calls from the White House. The pressure is gonna be unbearable. You know, yeah.
But you did this fast on the courthouse steps.
18
I mean,
years and 18 months.
it was just one thing after the other. Did
They
you
got
just sort of think of all of
They
these?
got some things in America today we call food stamps, Meals on Wheels, and there was 3 out there. There were 3 programs that I wrote those programs when I was on the hunger flags.
Okay.
Meals on Wheels, food stamps, and that was one other program, but I didn't call them that. I'm trying to see how to explain this. Martin King had a meeting with Leon Sullivan, who was a pastor of a church in Philadelphia,
Okay.
Reverend Dr. Leon Sullivan, and a Bigfoot country boy from Carolina named Jesse Jackson.
Bigfoot.
They had a meeting in Atlanta talking about hunger and poverty. And out of that meeting was created something called Operation Breadbasket.
Okay.
Operation Breadbasket became the urban program for SCLC, for our organization. So in other words, we looked at urban Black communities having different kind of challenges and needs than rural Black communities. What we do in rural Alabama and rural East Texas has to be different than what we do in urban Houston or urban Dallas.
Okay.
So bread basket was developed to deal with the urban challenges and the poverty of our people living in cities. And we established the Operation Breadbasket program in cities. So we established the Breadbasket program here in Dallas. The first director of Operation Breadbasket in Dallas was George Holland. And it's important who George was. George Holland was the son of Dr. Holland, who was the principal of Jack Yates High School and the first Negro to get elected to the school board in Houston.
In Houston, Texas, Jack Yates High School.
Yeah, so George grew up with a daddy who fought against the white people in Houston for black children. George was one of the people I hired and sent to Atlanta to be trained. George was the director of our Operation Breadbasket program, economic development program. But hunger and malnutrition became a problem, not just here in this city, but in the cities around the nation. We were dealing with the problems of hunger and malnutrition of our people. So we established ways to combat hunger and malnutrition.
Okay.
And the hunger fast. I had friends at SMU's law school and at Perkins School of Theology. Bill Farmer was at Perkins, Dr. William Farmer, brilliant theologian. Bill Farmer, the kids going to theology school today studying to be ministers. The book you're studying on the New Testament, Bill Farmer wrote the book. So Dr. Farmer was a brilliant theologian.
Now, is that about the time that Zan Holmes was also a professor at SMU, or was that before or after?
Zan was teaching at SMU.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Zan was pastor of the course, but also teaching at SMU. But Dr. Farmer, who also would eventually go to jail with me and stay in jail with me and travel with me, this white professor, and sit on the steps of City Hall and fasted with me. But we wrote a program for the city of Dallas to deal with hunger and malnutrition. And law school, and I don't remember the dean of the law school, along with law students, also wrote a city ordinance, a city law.
A city ordinance?
Yeah. My idea was that if the city of Dallas can write a law saying that it's illegal to drive 45 miles an hour, then why not write a law saying it's illegal to have hunger in your city?
Yeah.
If you can stop people from running red lights, why can't you deal with hunger?
Why can't we deal with hunger?
When I first talked to the law school about this, the law school professors and dean kind of laughed at me. And when they saw how serious I was, the dean of the law school said, well, they called me Rev.Peter. Well, Rev.Peter, this is something you want us to do, the law school to do it, so they wrote a city law for me.
Okay.
And I organized a coalition of white, black, and Jewish ministers. We went to the city council one day and presented this law to the city. We want y'all to declare hunger illegal. And the mayor basically told me I was out of my mind. So
the mayor told you you were out of your mind.
So mayor, let me tell you something, how crazy I am. You see the steps in front of the city hall? I'm going to sit there and drink water and sleep until y'all pass this law.
So that's how you got started. And while you were there, people would bring you food, but you would refuse it.
Oh yeah, and people would come from all over the world.
And they would come and sit with you.
Literally from all over the world, because the longer I stayed there, the more international exposure that had.
And that was media that the city of Dallas did not want. They hated
Walter Luther came. Walter Luther was president of the United Auto Workers. Walter Luther came and brought maybe 2,000 auto workers. March to see the whole enjoyment one day. My friends in Hollywood came.
So that was a tactic of the civil rights movement, wasn't it? To see how many people we could get to go to jail, stay in jail, draw attention to that city through the media.
That exposure. If we could make people see something that's wrong, we had enough faith in America that they were going to change it. If we could expose hunger, if I could make people understand that this is a reality, our faith in the human spirit and people was that if we could make people see hungry babies, they were going to do something about it.
Let's go back a while. There is a very famous picture of your family, your dad. Very famous picture. It was in Jet magazine. It was in Ebony magazine. It is a picture of a white trooper on a horse in a church. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, in the church I grew up in.
Tell us that. Tell us. I gotta hear that story again. I want to hear that story.
I grew up in South Louisiana. I grew up in a town called Plaquemine. It's in Iberville Parish on the west side of the Mississippi River. Uh, the church I grew up in was the Plymouth Rock Baptist Church. The church I grew up in was tear gas bombed 4 times in 1963. The church I grew up in became known in the civil rights movement as the Freedom Rock Baptist Church.
And they kept bombing the church.
Kept bombing it. If you can go and look at the New York Times in 1963,
Okay.
picture on the front page of the New York Times.
That's it.
Of a Louisiana State policeman on his horse.
That's it.
Ran up in the pulpit of the church I grew up in. They came in my church on horses.
That is the
They
picture.
traveled people.
And you were how? A little boy?
Not 19, 18,
18.
18, 17, 18. I was a kid. But
And these stories are so important. That's the magic in it. There's so much of history that has not been told. I worked for Peter Johnson. That's a true statement because I was in the law firm. But tell us about how important the street people were to the movement. The street people, the prostitutes, the gamblers.
oh God, they were our people.
And they were
Don't
just
you
regular
know-
people.
Don't you know how? Let me tell you. I'm here in Dallas. I got, say, 15, 16 children in jail. Where am I going to get the money from to get these children out of jail?
Mm-hmm.
I go to the people that don't got cash money. I go to the gangsters.
Yeah.
I go to Chicago Red. I go to Elsie Claw. I go to Fast Black. I go to the street people and say, hey, man, y'all let me get these people out. I go to Mr. Randall on the Negro cab company.
Yeah, he had what, 200 cabs at that
Yeah,
time?
he on the cab company. I mean, I go to our people. And Elsie Clark would bring me money in a brown paper bag. We get
The other part of the civil rights story that we never hear about, you had maids that came over.
Yeah.
In their white dresses, going to work in Highland Park, and leave $5.
come
$5.
over and bring a bag full of change.
Well, the building was 2606 Forest Avenue in Dallas, a building that God blessed you with 4 attorneys, and the landlord, the attorneys that charged you $1.
$1 a year. And they stayed in court fighting for us. It didn't get a dime. I mean, I could call them at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning about somebody in jail.
Well, why did you stay in jail? Why couldn't you do things peacefully? I'm just asking. I mean, you seem like a very sensible, let's say knowledgeable person. Now you're about 25 or 30. Why was it still necessary to go to jail?
You can't make the white power structure understand that this is not no game, that this is not something that's going to go away.
Okay.
That we've got to make y'all understand that I'm talking about the decision makers, that these things that we are fighting for regarding changes will make America better. Well, we're ready to die for this. So we ain't going to go away, and putting us in jail ain't going to scare us away. Threatening our lives ain't going to scare us away.
You always had a new batch of people.
Yeah, constantly.
And in the summertime, they didn't really want, because you had more people that were.
Students always, the civil rights movement was always students. Always students that if you look at the history of the civil rights movement, if you start with Montgomery, there were students that was growing up in Ralph Abernathy and Martin King's church in the Sunday school, who stayed in the civil rights movement, moved to Atlanta with their families when Dr. King and Rev. Abernathy moved to Atlanta. So the civil rights movement the foundation was always students. And what made
those are the ones for the time.
South Louisiana so important to the civil rights movement was not just to SCLC, but to CORE and the NAACP was Grambling, Southern, and Gillard. These big old black universities was in Louisiana.
Andrew Young, what kind of boss was he?
Well, for me, he was a pain in the butt because he was like a surrogate father to me.
He just had a birthday, didn't
Yeah, he just turned 90. I went to
90?
his 90th birthday party. And because Andy was, I was assigned to his staff, but I know I was a headache for him. And, like when the night I came to Dallas, Andy drove me to the airport. Normally, when I'm going on an assignment, I get my luggage, walk out, hail a cab, go to the airport, fly away.
But
over
he
there, send
drove
me.
you this
But
particular
this
night.
time, Andy said, Peter, where your luggage? I said, if it's in my office, Andy. He said, well, I'm driving you to the airport. I want to talk to you. This is real unusual.
So you knew
Because
something
first
was
me and
going
Andy
on.
got along like cats and dogs. Because he was a man, I'm a kid. Andy was a grown man, and I'm a kid, and I'm always thinking they always trying to stop me from doing what I want to do. And I couldn't, 18-year-old little boy. That night, for me to fly to Dallas, Andy said, no, Peter, I need to drive you to the airport. Put your luggage in the car. So when we get to the airport,
I'd love to hear that. Be a fly on the wall when y'all on the way to the airport.
yeah, and much talking going on, I'm flying to Dallas, and because Andy had this real serious look on his face. The meetings before coming up to this decision, it was hard for them to admit that you're gonna have to let Peter take all of the Southwest. And because for me, I'm so proud I'm finally getting big assignments, They're not dealing with me as a little boy no more. I'm just really happy.
And you got 5 states that you're
Oh
responsible
God,
for.
yeah. I'm just happy. And so I ended up driving to the airport that night. I get out the car. He get out the car. I'm getting my luggage. He said, wait a minute, Peter, I want to talk to you. And he puts his hand on my shoulder. He said, Peter, listen, Dallas is dangerous. Don't go down there and get killed. He said, now, try not to cuss the white people out. But son, do your assignment. Don't start no mess in Dallas. Just do your assignment. You got the rest of the Southwest. Get this done for Mrs. King and come on back here alive. This is his words to me that night. Don't go down there and start, but I couldn't wait to start shooting down.
After that speech, Dallas is dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, Dallas, Texas, the all boom capital of the world is dangerous.
The civil rights movement looked at Dallas as the worst, and Texas as the most confused white state in the South.
Confused.
Yeah, and in the South. And the most violent, brutal chapters of the Ku Klux Klan wasn't in Mississippi.
It was
Texas.
in Texas.
And the most brutal form of segregation was in East Texas. They did not bullshit in East Texas.
Wow.
So we had all of these educators and ministers and people reaching out, even before Martin's death, about East Texas.
But now Dr. King was actually invited to that. That's a known conversation that everybody likes to have, especially the churches. He was invited here. He came.
Yeah.
He played pool here.
Yeah, and the ministers boycotted it.
The ministers boycotted
and
him.
asked him not to come. They met him at the airport in Love Field and told him they didn't need him here. A man, the head of the Ministerial Alliance before S.M. Wright,
Okay.
he pastored Good Street Baptist Church. No,
not Good Street.
not Good Street.
That was Dr. Clark.
No, well, he might have been the man before Dr. Clark.
Okay.
But his name was, I can't call his name. I didn't know him because all this was gone when I came here.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the history, in terms of Daddy King and say Dr. Laura and these men, they knew about the black churches in Dallas. And that a part of what the city of Dallas done was they looked, first thing, that when the civil rights movement began to emerge around the South, and Birmingham and other places in the South, the city of Dallas, the rich white people in Dallas, hired white investigators to come and study the civil rights movement and bring it back so they could figure out how to keep that out of their city.
So they sent investigators to other cities that were having the issues, the bigger issues.
Yeah, and their idea was to figure out how to keep this out of Dallas. So they had a plan, and the plan was to get control of the black churches. So this
The
was
Dallas power brokers
Yeah.
during the civil rights era have been identified over the years, and we all know who they are. Of course, John Stemmons. We have Stemmons Freeway. Mr. Thornton, R.L. Thornton has a freeway, and of course that was Marcus. And you cannot leave the real estate mongrel out, Mr. Trammell Crow. So these were the citizens, the civil rights leaders of that day that decided they didn't want certain things in their city, and they didn't. We didn't have them, but they met your four attorneys and Peter Johnson.
yeah,
You know, you really are lucky to be alive.
I know. It's all Jesus. I mean, I wish I could take credit for his works, but no, it's all Jesus.
What was your most dangerous moment, you think?
Oh, that's a good question. I got to a point in this city where the place got so bad that I never slept in the same place.
Oh my gosh.
So I never slept in the same place.
So you move around at night to different
I never
places.
slept in the same place.
Oh, Peter, that's how long did that go on?
That went on for a while, and those that was kicked in with white men with guns and hoods on looking for me, that wasn't that.
Did you sleep at night? Were you able to sleep at night?
Yeah.
Bryce Cunningham used to go down into these East Texas, Nacogdoches, all of those cities, and get people out of jail. But he always called you the next couple of days. What did y'all talk about?
Well, whatever Bryce saw and heard, what Bryce and Bedford were very close to us, but Bryce would go all over East Texas fighting for our people and put, just turn it. And he would and what I would always tell Bryce, whatever county you're in, let me know what county it is, and what you see, what you hear, what you know. And then we would take a look at the county based on population.
Mhm.
Let's say you're talking about a county in East Texas that had any county that had more than 40% Negro population, we're going to invest in that county. And our idea is
Okay.
if we send Bill Stone and 3 or 4 other people in that county, we want them to register people to vote quietly. Don't make no noise. Don't let the white people know what we're doing. When they figure out what we're doing, we want to have as many Negroes registered as possible because we get ready to put the sheriff's ass on unemployment. And we would have to do that quietly, and we would get money to do that. That's why Julian Bond and John Lewis would, every year they would come here and bring me a check.
Hold that point. I've got to take a little bit of a break. My guest is the famous, great, honorable Peter Johnson. He's still alive. He fought for all of us, and we're talking about the building, 2606 Forest Lane. It's living history. I'll be right back. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're facing this same thing. There's your commercial right there. We're facing, so you're all over you're in about 10 countries. And that's another Hollywood. That's whatever, it's a promo. But
Yeah.
it's amazing. Now we're fighting the same thing today.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good one, ain't it?
So we're gonna do the word association, the
I'm
name.
gonna run to the bedroom.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, make it quick.
I was lying when I said run now.
Take your time. Go down that hallway. We'll edit it out, make a left.
You
We're gonna
know,
do the word association with the names, the people we bring up,
okay.
and he's gonna give a comment about them.
All right.
Run through them. There's about 8 of them.
Okay, good.
That's the name.
But not this, you and I have been having the same conversation 30
We
years
sitting
later.
right
The
here.
same damn
The same thing he's
conversation.
talking about.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
You from here?
No, from Florida,
What about
Hollywood.
Hollywood? What's it close to? Orlando?
Oh,
Whatever.
all right, there, Hollywood, Miami.
Oh, okay. Black folk? Is it black neighborhood?
Well, yeah.
What is it called?
Library.
Library? Yeah,
it's called the Black Mafia.
I like to know what neighborhoods and people say.
Yeah. And then you have Overtown.
Overtime.
You ever heard
Yeah,
about
like
Overtown?
Liberty City, all that.
Yeah. Oh, so you know about Liberty
Yeah.
City.
Mm.
You know about Rolex?
Nah.
Okay.
Is that a town?
No.
Well, you know they losing their people. Florida was one of the top retirement places. Guess where it's at now? 2 places: New Mexico and South Carolina.
South Carolina? I thought it would be Palm Springs.
It's New Mexico and South Carolina.
I thought it would be Arizona.
You New Mexico.
New Mexico.
Yeah, because
I
like,
sure got all them laws and people want to go there and all that. They
Mhm.
very unblack.
Very unblack.
that's where Ray Stubblefield came from,
Yeah,
New Mexico.
yeah, New Mexico. And
Boy, that
South
got to
Carolina.
be a real bad mix. Race Doublefield. He's real black.
you don't know him, do you?
Oh, he's a labor union professional. Really got to get him on the show at some point because
You
he
get
is going to talk trash just like Peter does. But he was in
And he
the
got
mix.
vocabulary that you
Oh, yeah.
don't believe.
Yeah, the labor unions. But he rose up. What is his type? Didn't he do something?
Well, he got a picture of him when they went in the young, because even
Peter.
he knew Ray Stubblefield
Yeah.
real good because they were all in Washington together.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they
But see,
were-
these are the stories we want to capture.
Yeah.
The ones
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not in the books. And we know they're not in the history books.
Yeah, but this one right here gonna be playing over and over.
A lot of people don't know about those guys. They got tradition.
Yeah.
Harvey Thornton, Stemmons, all
Oh,
these
yeah.
people they ride in the freeways every day. They know how racist they were.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
Well,
Very
that's
much.
because I would tell her when I first came to Dallas, I worked at Abbott Laboratory for about 9 months before I started my own business. They were paying married man more than they were paying single guy. Oh, you know about
Oh,
that?
yeah. Well, let me tell you a story about Stemmons Freeway. From downtown all the way to what this right here is now. It was they bought the land from the Corps engineers. They paid them all that money, so they family owned all this land for years. That's generational wealth. I mean, people understand.
Generational wealth.
But see, people are not down. So
Here we go.
like I say,
We're
We'll
going to put
do
up some pictures and you're going to talk about the people
that you know.
that you know.
Okay, here we
Wherever
go.
you can get us a couple of sentences.
Re-ID and lead into that.
All right, thanks.
Here we go. 5, 4, say 3, 2, 1.
And we're back, and I'm Esther Davis with a very, very special person to all of us, the Reverend Dr. Peter Johnson. We've gone through a couple of stories that we wanted to get on tape. And because Peter, the Reverend Dr. Peter Johnson, was at the forefront of the civil rights group in Dallas, Texas. So he's shared a couple of stories with us. It's very important that we start chronicling the rest of the story of the civil rights movement. And that's why he's here after a long, long wait, the Esther Davis show. Okay, we're going to put up some people. You can tell us, give us a brief synopsis of who they were. Juanita Kraft.
Miss Kraft, of course.
Go to your mic, because I don't want to miss this. Juanita Kraft, we just had the NAACP. What can you tell us in a couple of sentences about Mrs. Kraft?
I met Miss Kraft at an NAACP convention when I was a student.
Oh, wow.
The national convention. I flew to that convention. The reason I remember this convention so well, I flew to that convention from Baton Rouge, me and the man I call Hippie. His name is Dr. Walter Young. This is Andy Young's brother.
Okay.
Now, but we call him Hippie. Hippie and I flew from Baton Rouge to the NAACP convention. And because I don't want to even try to remember what year, but what I remember was it was right after the student sit-in movement, and there was a big issue over whether or not the NAACP would embrace and endorse John Lewis and the student sit-in movement, which they never did.
Okay.
Because they wanted the NAACP. My father was president of the NAACP in my hometown, and he was friends with Thurgood Marshall and Larry Wilkins. So there was friction between students in my father's generation, real friction between. Martin King was kind of the connection that connected the students movement with the historical civil rights movement led by. See, Dr. King was in his 20s, so we not talking to, when people look at Martin King, you think you're looking at Daddy King was a man, Dr. King was a kid.
Right. Because that's the way they never grew up in those days.
Yeah.
Okay. That was Mrs. King, but Mrs. Kraft, who was Elsie Faye Higgins.
Mrs. Higgins. Elsie Faye Higgins, a part of the reason I stayed in Dallas against Andy Young's orders and against Reverend Abernathy's orders. In the hotel I was staying in downtown Dallas, preparing for this movie. One night, some people knocked on my door in my hotel. I had not even been into South Dallas because my orders was to stay out of trouble, stay out of do your job, go back and forth to Love Field. And these people knocked on my door one night. A man named Albert Lipscomb, Elsa Higgins, J.B. Jackson,
Wow.
and one other person, I don't know who I'm trying to name.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Gideon Johnson was his name. He was an elderly man.
Whoa.
And they came to my hotel room to talk to me about a place called Fair Park that I had never heard of.
Black folks couldn't go to, we had one day at Fair Park.
But what was going on was at this time, the city of Dallas, it was preparing to take their property, their homes.
Oh, okay.
And they came and told me about what the city was trying to take their homes. And I'm using the word homes because this is the word Mr. Johnson, Mr. Gideon Johnson used. Not my house,
My home.
my home. They're trying to take my home, is what this old man told me. And he said, we need you because you wait for Dr. King to come and help us in South Dallas.
Wow.
And I explained to them I can't. I'm on an assignment. I have strict orders not to get involved with what's going on in the city. I have a responsibility to do this because this is about Dr. King's widow. I'm just explaining. Mr. Gideon Johnson was an elderly man. With tears in his eyes, he shook his finger in my face and he told me, if Dr. King was alive, he'd help save our homes. This man said, and he was crying when he did that.
So that was it, sort of the beginning of the Fair Park homeowners fight.
That's what this was about, yeah. And I'm dealing with the premiere showing of this movie. And here again, I got these other challenges. I got to raise this money. I got to raise this amount of money, or they're going to be teasing me and talking about how they shouldn't have gave me this. So I got other, to me, more important stuff, whatever they talking about. And I didn't know them anyway. This was just people came to my hotel
Al
room.
Lipscomb, Elsie Higgins, and he didn't know.
Didn't know, none of them
Okay.
was known in this city.
Okay,
I
so who's this
introduced
guy right here?
Albert Lipscomb was a waiter.
I've got another person here for you.
Oh,
That would be,
Ester Wright, Dr. Wright, Ester Wright, Reverend Ester Wright. He pastored People's Baptist Church.
okay.
But he was also president of what was called the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance, the organization of black preachers. And this was the organization that the white people related to. And they explained this to me, I mean,
So he spoke, what you're basically saying is that he spoke for all of the entire black race and things.
yeah, he
Dallas.
yeah.
Okay,
See,
okay.
the way this system was set up in Dallas was the white people are set up a kind of a, and they explained this to me, the white power structure. I wanted the mayor in the white power structure to meet with the Fair Park homeowners. And my thing was, y'all taking these people's homes, y'all at least respect them and meet with them. And Alex Bickler and Eric Johnson explained to me, this is their words. We have our Negro leaders here. We choose our Negro leaders here. We tell them what we want the Negro community to do.
They physically
go-
absolutely said that to you.
And these are their words. See, these are words I'll never forget because I grew up in the civil rights movement. No white man had never talked to me like that. I worked for Martin King. Nobody don't crack. No white man had never spoke to me like that in my face. This is what they told me, that they got their nigger leaders, they choose them. They talk to them, then they go back and talk to the Negro community. This is 3-4 days before the Cotton Bowl parade. So you know what I explained to them? Let me tell y'all something. You could have a meet with the Fair Park homeowners, and you better do it before January the 1st. I'm gonna block the Cotton Bowl parade on national television. You got X amount of days to get this done. If you don't have this meeting, I'm gonna block. And that there used to be something, I don't know if it may still exist. It was a deal that we had with Western Union. They had a deal called mailograms.
Okay.
And so if I wanted to send a telegram, they had a cheap way I could send mailograms. Those of us who worked in the civil rights movement, I had 2 tablets of contacts. We call them our friends. That's
People you could call that could be
It was-
here for this
It was
boycott of the
called,
parade.
it was called our friends. You hear Andy talk about it all the time. What would we do about Selma? We sent for our friends. What would I do about Dallas? Send for my friends. And the milligram.
Let's pull up
So it
another.
was cheap,
was
you
cheap.
know.
Okay, let's look up the other one. This is
Oh,
Marvin Robinson.
That's my buddy.
Dr. Marvin Robinson. He spent some time in jail, didn't he?
I've known Marvin Robinson since I was a kid going to high school. Marvin went to Southern University. I grew up 15 minutes from Southern's campus. Marvin was president of the student body during the sit-in movement.
The city.
Marvin went to jail in the sit-in movement. My daddy and the NAACP got them out of jail and gave them places to stay. They couldn't even go get their clothes off campus.
Ooh.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
They couldn't go back to the dormitories when they got kicked out of college. So all of these boys would eventually become black leaders.
Black leaders and wherever they landed, because
Yeah.
Marvin came into town. Okay, here's another one. We are identifying some of the famous legends in
Bill Blair.
Civil.
Yeah.
William Bill Skinny Legs Blair.
Bill's office was literally across the hall from my offices. Right down across the hall on the other side was the E-Light News. is what it was called.
E-Light.
Yes, Bill's office was right across from the office. We're in the same building right down the hall from my office.
And that newspaper is still in existence. The second generation is still running the E-Light News. He died a couple of years ago. He's like 90 something, but he was also a famous member of the Black Negro Baseball.
I have a jacket from the Negro Baseball League with all of the teams
Wow.
on that jacket.
Wow. Okay, let's see who else we have here. Segregation of Dallas public swimming pools. Well, we're really taking you down memory lane today.
Yeah.
Swimming pools. What was the dispute over a swimming
Well,
pool?
I don't know. White people was thought that if they swim in the same pools with black people, that the water would turn them black. I don't know what confused crap they had in their mind.
How can sane people have those kind of thoughts? I just,
What I know is how much they meant that. In Florida, I'm trying to think of where it was, and they led a protest to integrate the pools in this town. And you know what the white people do? They threw acid on the people.
while they were in the pool? That's, okay, we got one more picture. We're going through renaming Forest Avenue Boulevard to MLK. Now, our building, when I first mentioned the address, was 2606 Forest Avenue, but it was changed to Martin Luther King Jr., just like thousands and thousands of other cities that have had a city named after MLK Jr.
And they called it Jewel.
Now, why did we fight that? You were there then. Why did they just fight the name of the? What I mean, only black people lived on Forest Avenue.
Dr. King was a pain in the butt for white America. And having his name on highways and streets all over America meant white people had to see that. In Texas, where they literally put up walls to keep Martin King out of this town and out of this state, acknowledging Dr. King's greatness was something this city did not want to do.
So that's why I see now why Dallas is dangerous was given to you years before we even thought about where we were living.
Even Daddy King, Daddy King told me all about the Negro preachers here and what they had done to his son. And Peter, don't trust them preachers down there. That's Papa King. That's Papa King. When I'm getting ready to come in, and Papa King and I prayed together.
And you know Maynard Jackson.
Oh, you made it real well.
He used to live there.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Maynard
Yeah.
grew up here. You know, Maynard's really people
Father.
was run out of this town. You know.
I think the Maynard Jackson family was years ahead
Yeah.
of the rest of America because they moved because of the school system.
Yeah.
And I remember that from Julia Jordan, Dr. Jordan's wife, because there have been stories all of our lives, but we need to pull those stories together and put them in a bank so that children all around the world will know the rest of the story. And Rhett James did something. What did you think about Rhett James?
I'm trying to see how to explain how important Ray James was to the civil rights movement. I'm getting old. Red James, roommate in college,
Okay.
would eventually become a great civil rights lawyer. That was Martin King's lawyer.
Oh, he was?
So the reason Red James knew Dr. King so well, and I can't think of this man, I can see him right, he became a famous black lawyer in Chicago. But he was the lawyer for the civil rights movement for a long time and for Dr. King. Wonderful, wonderful man. And what I remember about it, this is, he dressed so
Oh, he was very flashy.
He
He was
was.
very
I
flamboyant.
like that, but
he was
that,
good
but
looking, yes.
dressed so.
Yeah.
And this
And his name
man
was
here,
Rhett, R-H-E-T-T.
yeah, Red James. Yeah, that's it, Red James. But
Amazing.
Red's roommate in college became Dr. King's lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah, so Red was very close to Dr. King because that was one was personal lawyer was Red's roommate in college, and I can't think of that man's name as well as I knew him. Yeah.
But I have another question here because a lot of people think the civil rights movement was made up of all dirt poor African Americans. And sometimes we take a little bit, I take a lot of African Americans take an exception to it because we have always had a legitimate middle
The
class.
civil rights movement was made up of upper class educated black people. Yeah, upper class educated black people.
Okay.
That's what the civil rights movement was. Upper class. Now the student movement was students. Yeah. So you always distinguish the difference between the student movement and the civil rights movement. If you look at the student movement, students didn't have no money. Most of those students came from families that was upper class families. See, Junior Bond's daddy, Dr. Bond. My daddy was William Johnson. So you look at the students in the civil rights movement, you're looking at upper class, middle class kids that was going to college, going to college.
And in our neighborhood, those were powerful people.
Yeah. So if you look at Andy Young's daddy, he was a dentist. Papa Young was a dentist. And he was the only black dentist that I knew about as a little boy growing up. When I had a bicycle, Walter had a Jaguar, and they had a Maserati. Maserati, some shit I had never heard. I used to think about them, how crazy they was. And I told Walter one day, man, how much money does your daddy have? Why you didn't get a Cadillac? Because I thought Eldorado, right? Yeah, some foreign car. I didn't know about those
He's got
foreign
a Jaguar.
cars.
So
Yeah. I didn't know nothing about that.
Let's talk about the Masons. I got a few more minutes. You had a relationship with the Masons.
Prince Hall Mason.
Prince Hall Masons.
Of course. My daddy was the wishful master of the Prince Hall Mason.
They have these long names. And I remember the Sovereign Grand Commander,
Yeah,
Prince Hall Mason.
Yeah. My daddy was the wishful master. So one of the things that the Masons could do for the civil rights movement, let's start with Peter. I go get a bunch of kids put in jail.
Okay.
I call my dad to collect from jail. You know why? Daddy is the
Wishful
master of the Mason. You know what the Masons got? They got a deal called Got My Five. You know what that means?
No, what's that?
So, let's say I needed $10,000.
Okay.
How long do you think it take the Masons to raise that?
I don't know.
30 minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. If they had a deal called Got My Five. Got My Five was simple. Every brother is what they call themselves.
Right.
He got 5 brothers to call. That's all. Them 5 brothers got 5 brothers, got 5 brothers, got 5 brothers.
And that's 5 times 5. That's 25.
And everybody got 5. That's all they do is call their 5. So they want to, if you want $50 from every man, all you do is call your 5. They call their 5, their 5, their 5. So you got 5,000 men doing that. So I quickly raise that money.
And that's the part, and we have to write this. This is an Esther Davis opinion. We have to write that history because the history, the movies have been distorted.
Let me tell you what I'm laughing.
How much time we got back there,
I went
Mr.
to jail in my
Dunn?
hometown. And Daddy came to get me out of jail. But I had gone to jail with probably 2 busloads of students, white and black kids from all over America.
Okay.
And of course, Daddy was going to get me out of jail. And I explained to Daddy, Dad, no, I can't come out of jail unless everybody who went to jail with me come out. They in jail because of me. And if you get me out of jail, I got to leave my friends in jail. Because some of them have come all the way from California to go to jail with me.
Mhm.
Or from New York. So they said, well, we raise the money to get anybody out. Because all he got, he gonna call 5 people. They gonna call 5 people. Everybody got 5 people to call to raise that money. So in 30 minutes, they come back down there and get everybody out of jail.
My guest has been the Peter Johnson, and we all know him as Dr. Peter Johnson, Reverend Peter Johnson, a mighty, mighty giant in Dallas and Texas, his civil rights movement. And we're just blessed and thanks that he is still alive, because so many times their life was threatened. And so many of our civil rights leaders, if you know one anywhere, find out who they are, find out who they are and have a conversation with them, because I guarantee you they have a story about the civil rights movement. They're African Americans in the South at any point. So I have to go. But Peter, it's been such a pleasure.
You know how special you are to me.
You are awfully special to me. You worked me harder than I ever worked in my entire life.
And
in that law office.
I love you because you were down the hall from us, and as long as you don't tell everything you know, I'll always love you. But you know stuff that I don't want you to tell. Some of that stuff.
The Reverend Peter Johnson on the Ester Davis Show. And you know what? You really are the greatest audience in the world. Share the stories, live the story, go out and find the people who have the stories. See you next time. Woo!
Getting right a bit, Ester.
I'm just happy to get that's yours. You're gonna take that with you. That's